So this last step is where the rubber really meets the road. I'm gonna slow it way down to begin with as I explain to you what you need to do. Okay, so you're going to cut out the pins now. When I say the pins, you're cutting out the portion of wood that the tails fit into. Now, the key thing here, when you cut, you wanna cut on the outside of the line. By the outside of the line, I mean the waist side of the line. So if you look right here, I am making a crow's foot on the side of the line that you want to cut on. You don't want to cut on the other side of the pencil line, otherwise you're going to end up with gaps. So again here, I'm marking out another crow's foot. Notice how this is on the side of the line that the X's are in that you made. So when you cut, your saw blade is going to sit on that side of the line. If anything, you want to leave a little bit extra, but you're going to do your best to cut right on that side of the line so you leave the pencil mark when you're done cutting. Okay, really let that sink in. When you cut, you're cutting on the outside of the line. You're going to leave that pencil mark. You're going to do the best you can to stay right next to it. That way you make a nice, clean, tight joint. Now that I'm cutting the lines, it's pretty much the same motion. I'm doing the same thing I did when I cut the tails. The key thing is, again, I'm cutting on the outside of the line. So I'm cutting on the inside of the waist, outside of the line. I hope that's not too confusing. You can see though, if you look here, see how I'm cutting on the side that the waist is on and I'm leaving the pencil line? I'm cutting on the waist side of the line. So I'm gonna take my time. You wanna cut really straight. This is important. You need to be accurate with this part. But the big thing is cut on the waist side of the line. Then you're gonna come in with a coping saw, just like you did before when you cut your tails, and you're just gonna hog out most of the wood, but you're not going to try to get too close to the line. Leave, maybe 1/8 of an inch or so away from the line. So when you look at it, again, you can see you still have those lines marked with the marking gauge. And on the back, you still have the lines. We're gonna follow the same step that we followed when we cut our tails now, using a chisel to chisel out the wood. Only you have to be careful when you chisel this time, because on one side of your pins, you're actually gonna need to chisel out more wood than on the other. So you really wanna make sure that you only go halfway through. I'm marking with my marking knife. Again, that's an important step. Make sure you do that. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing on both sides. You can do both sides at one time, or you can do it before you chisel. That's up to you. And then I'm gonna go in with my chisel again, and I'm gonna make that little shoulder that I made before. You can see here, I'm trying to find a chisel that fits right in there. So I found a width that fits in, and I'm using the chisel, again, to mark out that little shoulder, or to cut out that little shoulder. That way I have something to put the edge of the chisel against. So it's just like what I did before with the tails. Then I'm gonna come in, but when I chisel this time, I'm gonna be really careful that I don't go all the way through. I'm only going halfway through, because the other side might be wider or narrower, depending on what side I'm cutting. So I'm going halfway through, taking it apart. You can see here, look carefully. See how I only went halfway through on my cut? I did not cut all the way out, just halfway into the wood. And you can see on the right side, I didn't even go halfway. But it's important, otherwise you're gonna blow out the back, which you don't wanna do. So now I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna flip it over. And I'm gonna do the same thing I did before. I'm clamping it down. I'm gonna use the chisel there. The knife first, I already did it though. So this time I'm going to grab a wider chisel that fits into that space. And I'm using a wider chisel now to cut out my little shoulder there, just that little notch. It's really important, right to the line. And once I get that notch cut, I'm gonna take my chisel and I'm gonna put the flat side against my line again, just like I did before. And I'm gonna use a mallet, and I'm lightly pounding. This time I'm going halfway through. I should meet the cut that I made before. You can see I'm clearing it out here, and I should have a nice, clean, square cut. This is not easy to do. It's definitely gonna take some practice. But I should, at this point, have a nice, clean, square cut. It should look like a knife edge where I cut. And if I did it right, with some practice, I should then be able to take it, put it in the vise, and I should be able to put in the tails that I cut. You can see overall that's pretty tight. There's a slight gap in one spot there. It's hard to tell that it's tight because of the pencil lines too that you see there, but that's the basic idea. That's what you're shooting for. And again, this is going to take you a while. You'll probably have to cut, I don't know, 5 of these or 10 of these before it even starts to make sense. But that's a quick and dirty explanation on how to cut a dovetail. All right, I hope you guys have fun with it.